Let's talk about secret number 2. It doesn't have to take forever. I mentioned earlier that traditional models state that it takes 3 to 5 years of intensive therapy for couples to begin stabilizing and healing their relationship. I have had clients come to me after 5 years, 10 years, 15. The most I think that to my recollection is about 45 years of work on issues related to betrayal. That is that's older than I am. That's a long time. So many couples do not heal because the focus is placed exclusively on ceasing acting out behaviors. That's another problem with traditional models is there's so much out there that is centered around stop acting out, stay sober. And the belief that abstaining from chronic infidelity will heal the past infidelity is hopeful at best and harmful at worst. It's simply insufficient. You have to have more than sobriety. If you go this route of doing it your own way, where there's this huge focus on sobriety up first, and you delay the relational component for 2 or 3 years while the individual work is being done, you know what that's going to lead to? Exhaustion, confusion, detachment, loss of momentum, additional grief. Have any of you been here? I know you have. Not too long ago, within the last couple months, I worked with a couple, a wonderful couple, a delightful couple. I mean, I really enjoyed my time with them. And their situation was that they had done literally 2.5 years of weekly, hear me out, weekly 2.5 years of individual therapy. He'd seen a CSAT. She'd been seeing a betrayal trauma specialist individually. They had done incredible work individually. I actually happened to know their individual therapist, great therapist, doing excellent work. But for 2.5 years, they had not done one single piece of couples work. The first time they came together as a couple to formally work on this stuff was in my office. After 2.5 years, they were exhausted. They were confused. They were detached. They had lost momentum. They had additional layers of grief because it wasn't just the loss from prior to the discovery of the betrayal. It was the loss of the last 2.5 years together as they'd been on their own. It breaks my heart, and it does feel like it takes forever. Let me tell you a story. Different name, obviously, change the names here. This is a real story from before I had my own practice and I worked in another practice, worked for someone else. I eventually started seeing a couple at this other practice, and the woman, we'll call her Rena, she did not get a formal therapeutic disclosure for over 2.5 years. Why? Because in the model that was used at this clinic, it was contraindicated until her husband could establish sobriety. The policy was you had to have 90 days of sobriety to do a disclosure. Well, guess what? This guy kept getting 75, 80, 85 days and then slip, relapse. This woman was left without a disclosure for 2.5 years. That is why I left. I saw it happen, and it wasn't just this one time. I saw it happen and I was like, I could not sit back and watch that. I started my own practice. These folks, I didn't solicit them, but they found me and I was able to provide them this disclosure. This is what she said to me. When we moved forward, despite his spotty recovery, we both felt empowered to actually get at the roots of our problems. This is me trying to show you pictorially what a lot of traditional models do. So at first, up here, the top line, you have the betraying or the acting out partner, establish safety, then cease acting out. Then you're going to work on your individual trauma, your family of origin trauma, and then we'll get to the relational repair. Meanwhile, in parallel, we're going to establish safety for the betrayed partner. We're going to start to stabilize the trauma and then process that trauma. And then if any co-occurring issues come up, then we'll do that and do family of origin issues. And then we'll get to the relational repair. And yeah, that takes 3 to 5 years. And so it's just prolonging improvement and it's missing opportunities. And I think it's even exacerbating distress because let me ask you, how's life at home? How are you doing establishing stability at home when you're not actually working on the relationship? My guess is it's not going too well unless you do the detachment thing or get a therapeutic separation or something like that. But here's the way I think it can be. What I think can happen is that we can execute 2 parallel paths of healing after establishing a new safe and stable foundation. So we want to start with establishing safety and stability as quickly as possible in a responsible way, as quickly as possible, get to that disclosure because that is part of safety and stability for the betrayed partner. And then then the betraying partner has his work to do, or his or her work to do, the betrayed partner theirs, but together as a couple, we treat directly the attachment wound from the betrayal itself. And in parallel to that, we begin to change the relational dynamic between them to allow a relational environment that is actually conducive to that wound being healed. Now, I have a very important little note. You got to read the fine print, right? This timeline is only possible when both partners are fully devoted to the healing of the relationship. I want to be clear on that too. The betraying partner always goes first. That's my opinion. That's the way it works in couple-centered recovery. If you're a betrayed partner, you're like, wait, you're asking me to be fully committed after he did that? Hear me out. There is a period of time where justice demands that he is living out a commitment that you are still unsure about. That's what justice and reason would demand. Partners that I work with, even if they're withholding because they don't trust, their heart wants to get to a place of trust. That's why they're working on the relationship at all. From Tom and Sarah. We have been to more than a dozen therapists and coaches over the last decade. Though we experienced some results individually, our marriage was stalled out. We couldn't break through the mistrust, pain, grief, and anger. We started working couple-centered recovery 8 weeks ago and have made more progress in these 2 months than the whole decade prior. This has saved our family. This was very meaningful to me because this was a couple with young kids. So when they say this has saved our family, they're thinking about their kids. And I've heard comments like this a lot. So if you're on here and you're just starting this process, you're hearing me make the case to start with a couples component. If you're on here and you've been at this a long time, but that couples piece has been missing, maybe that's why you haven't gotten the healing and the transformation that you're looking for yet. So here's what I want to offer you on this. This is what I am giving you right here for free. I want you to take it. I want you to use it. I want this to be a gift and a blessing to you. This is literally the point-by-point, play-by-play outline of the process that we at Daring Ventures lead couples through to heal from betrayal. It's all on there. Granted, I understand that, I could take any one of those bullets and spend 90 minutes just on one bullet there. Go to my YouTube channel. It'll fill in the gaps. I'm telling you, it will. And I want to acknowledge it's not always this nice and neat and tidy and linear, but this is the road that leads to healing. This is my whole recovery model. Up here at the top, based on the research, the actual research of Patrick Carnes, we see the individual healing journey for a recovering addict. These time frames are from Carnes's research, where he gives the 3 to 5 year timeline. My experience is that does not apply when you add in the couples element here. At the bottom, you see partners research, partners recovery. This is based on the research of Stephanie Carnes. It's the parallel phases of recovery that a partner goes through individually. But right here in the middle, that's the couples recovery. It's based on 3 phases: seeking safety and stability, grieving together, and then revisioning the relationship. That is all rooted in research on trauma treatment. Within each of those phases, there are tasks to be done around assessment, around stabilization. You can see disclosure kind of set off to itself there, meant to be a transition point from phase 1 into phase 2, where you do grief work, grieving together. Grief is essentially a meaning-making process. This is where we do the impact and the amends work, where we rebuild trust, where you work on a collaborative narrative. So you lost a shared story. There was a shared story that was lost. Okay, let's put it back together, but put it together with each other so that you don't have these 2 independent stories of what happened. I guarantee you that is a surefire way for the relationship to not make it. Grief is where the healing happens. Simultaneously, though, you have to be addressing the relational dynamics. That's about creating that environment conducive to the healing of the wound. If the grief work is treating the wound directly, addressing the relational dynamics is how we make sure that that wound can actually heal. We're not stretching it too far. We're not reopening it constantly. That when it gets reopened a little, we know how to repair those ruptures. And then transitioning into revisioning the relationship, where you continue changing the relational dynamics, but there's also renewal in the relationship, looking forward, new goals, a new vision for the relationship, shared values that actually orient you to each other and to your future together. There you have it. My gift to you. There are trained professionals who can assist you in this journey too. Coming soon, you will be able to find at couplecenter.org a directory of coaches and clinicians and clergy who are trained in couple-centered recovery. That's coming soon. I'm not sure when, but soonish. We'll have that up and running. Until then, you can learn about the team at daringventures.com and reach out to us. So it doesn't have to take forever.